Hey guys, it's Will from Tested. Today I have something really exciting to announce. We have a new, let's say, franchise here that we're going to launch today. One of the things we know you guys really like are Adam's one-day builds, where we go into the shop with Adam and spend, let's say, 4 to 8 hours building a specific project. Usually most of those have been boxes and stuff like that so far. The problem is we don't have that much time with Adam, so it's difficult for us to do them regularly, and they take a long time to produce. So Adam's given us access to his shop. He's going to let us go in there and build our own stuff, make our own mistakes, learn from the processes. Norm and I are nowhere near the builders that Adam is, but we know enough to be dangerous and we know enough to get started. And just like you guys, we learn stuff the same way. We go to YouTube, we download books, we download instructions from websites, and then we can follow them and learn as we go, as well as occasionally asking for help from people who may know more. This is also the first video that we're going to put the Presented by Tested Premium Members banner on. What that means is that we're taking the membership dollars that you guys give to us and we're treating you like an advertiser. We're building premium content tailored for you, but available to everyone. It's stuff that wouldn't exist without Tested Premium members and the membership dollars that they contribute. But we don't feel right putting it behind the paywall. We want everybody to have access to it. So this is the first of those videos. There'll be more to come later. And basically what your money's paying for is extra production resources. Editors, camera people, sound, all that. So we have time to spend more time on longer form videos like this. So what's the first project? I wanted to build a headphone hook. I have these big gaming headphones that I use when I'm sitting at my desk at home. But the cable's always in the way. It's hard to figure out where to put them. If I put them on my desk, then the cable gets tangled with the mouse and keyboard and all that other stuff. And I wanted a woodworking project that I could use, well, let's say some scraps left over from the bookshelves that I built for my daughter a couple of years ago. And this seemed perfect for that. It gives me an opportunity to learn some new skills, use some new materials, and maybe show you guys a little something about how I like to build stuff when it's time for me to go to the shop. So let's get started and jump right in with the first step. So before I do anything else, I'm going to prime and then paint the wood. For this, I want to do the Tom Sachs style, which means I'm going to paint everything and then cut and leave the edges naked and awesome. Hopefully it's going to look awesome. We'll see. Fingers crossed. So this is finished plywood, and I didn't sand it, or at least, so this is scrap left over from a previous project. It may have been sanded last year, and I just don't remember. But yeah, I don't, for this kind of thing, I don't care if it's going to, I kind of want a little bit of a nap on the paint. Touching it too much. Okay, I'm walking away. So what I'm going to do is build a trammel. And what a trammel is basically is a little lever that lets you move the router on a precise arc. So one end will get nailed into whatever I'm cutting. The other end will be affixed on the end of the router, and you'll just kind of run it through. If I had to guess, Adam has one in the shop someplace. I just have no idea where it is. And yeah, so we'll have a learning experience today. Jamming bits, letter drill bits, number drill bits, fractional drill bits. I think that's where I'm at. Because the screws go into the bottom of the trammel, I need to countersink the heads just a little bit. So I'm just going to do that real quick and dirty. And if I go too far, it's not a big deal. I just need to make sure that the heads of the screws go all the way in. This is coming together. The other thing I need to do, I need to make a hole. I need to make a hole for the router, a big hole. So let's do that next. Okay, so now I have a big circle. I'm just going to cut that whole thing out, and then we're going to be left with a hole in the middle. So let's get started on that. Frisbee made sloshing noises. So this is the color of the office at my house. If you ever watch streams from there, you've seen it before. There's some magenta. It's deep red. So it's been about an hour since I put the first coat of primer on. We should theoretically be ready to put some more paint on here. Gonna look like wall with some white primer behind it. Shit. When I was a kid one time, I helped paint a room at my parents' house. And I did it, and I did this thing where to knock the excess paint off of the roller, I would just give it a real good spin. And after I finished, I realized that that was actually painting the walls a really good color that weren't supposed to be painted the wall. You know, the walls were getting painted the ceiling color in a way that wasn't really what we were looking for. This is all the finishing I'm going to do. I'll probably paint this, maybe sand it real quick, and then smack another coat of paint on there, and that's it. That's all we'll do. Okay, let's go finish the trammel. Okay, so if I did everything right, I should have pretty close to a trammel here. And all I need to do next is mark the spot where the router bits hit and measure my distance from there to get the arc on the trammel right. For this, I'm going to want 2.5 inches and 1.5 inch trammel swings. If I wasn't trying to make 6 layers of wood here for this arch, I probably could have just done this on the bandsaw, but that seemed a little bit like cheating. So what a router does is lets you cut down into stuff, right? So you can plunge, you can adjust the depth, and you can cut into the middle of a surface like you can with a drill, but more like a saw. So what I'm going to use this for is I'm going to drill a couple of holes down here, 1 inch and, 1.5 inches and 2.5 inches from the edges, from the center of the bit to here. And then I'll put a nail through there into the wood that I'm cutting and use that to cut arcs. So the router, let me crank this back up so I don't scrape up his bit or his table, will pivot cleanly on an axis. And I'll be able to do that in a repeatable way that I wouldn't be able to do without the trammel. That's one of the nice things about the trammel. Now the problem is I've never really used a router before, so I got to learn how to do the bit changing and figure out what kind of bit to use and all that kind of stuff. Because there's tons and tons and tons of different bits you can use with a router. My plan is not going to work. Okay, so my good wood's over there. I was going to go through this whole thing where I built a trammel rig for the router, and I got about halfway through it and realized it wasn't going to work because the router was too big for the size that I needed to cut. So then I asked myself, what would Adam do? And he would say, close enough is close enough, or something like that. And then we would just do it with the bandsaw and kind of eyeball it. So, since I've never really used the bandsaw before, I have a piece of scrap wood here. I'm going to cut it, do a couple of practice runs, see how it works before I take my good wood and glue it all together and then cut all the pieces at once. Bandsaws were originally invented to cut meat. So I think I need more practice. So here's the first one. Here's the second one. The second one's better. It's still kind of weirdly humpy in places, but we're improving. There's gradual improvement. So I'm going to do one more. I still have a little bit of paint to dry, and then we'll do some gluing and stuff. Okay, so my paint's dried, or dried enough. No blood, no red. I'm going to take this, I'm going to run it down the sides and get a 5-inch wide piece. Do I even want to do that? Let me think about this for a minute. Maybe the way to do this is just build the stacks, glue them, and then cut it all at once next week so the cuts are nice and even. I have to be really thick to cut it next week. I'm going to cut it first. Okay, so I'm going to go over to the table saw, cut this into 5-inch wide pieces per my plans, and we'll see how it goes. So that should be 5 inches all the way up and down both ways. I only scorched the sides a little bit, which is much better than I've done in the past with the table saw. So now let's make it into 9 and 10-inch segments. I don't know if this is a good idea or not. I may have fucked up by painting this first, but we'll figure it out. We'll learn as we go. It's fine. I'm going to glue these pieces together. I have some clamps that I left sitting over here that I've stolen from Adam's shop. Don't tell Adam. And hopefully I can get them all clamped. But the way it looks to me is I can glue these 4 in the middle and then cut out the piece to make the shelf on the bottom and the arch on the top. And then follow the same arches for the top here and on the inside. And it should work. We'll see. I'm just gonna start gluing. That's all I know to do. I usually don't like these kind of clamps, but it's what Adam seems to favor, so. Let's see if we're even on the bottom. Not even close to even on the bottom. Fucking hell. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is get a hammer. This end's pretty flush. Like, I'm gonna need a little bit of belt sander time to fix that up, but it's not terrible. I don't think that's gonna go anywhere. But yeah, I feel like this is a pretty good place to end. So I'm gonna let this set up. It takes like 24 hours to get fully hard. So I'm gonna go away for a second and then I'm gonna come back with a different t-shirt on. Oh yeah, see, shirt's different, told you. This stuff's been clamped all weekend. I have no idea if this worked or not. I think the glue and the paint probably weren't a super great idea, but we'll find out now because I'm gonna take the clamps off. There's one, marred up the paint, that's fine though. There's 2, that paint, actually I heard it clicking off when I released. There's a 3rd one, I just whacked the microphone with that one, so I bet that sounded great. And here's number 4. It feels pretty solid to me. I mean, I can't pull it apart with my hands, which isn't a big surprise, but I was worried that the glue was gonna glue to the paint and not go all the way through to the wood, but it seems to be okay. I don't think I can pull it apart. I don't think I could pull it, I don't know if that matters. Okay, so today I need to figure out how to cut curves. Last week I tried to do a trammel, which isn't gonna work with the router because the gate for the router, the thing that goes around the router, the platform, the base, is too big to do the size curve that I need. So I went to YouTube and I read on the internet, it seems like the best way to do this is to build a jig. Now what's gonna happen is I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna start working on the jig. Adam's gonna be here in a little bit and I'm sure he's gonna have a better way to do it. But this is how you learn. So I'm gonna go start building the jig now and he probably already has one in here someplace that I just don't know about. Okay, so I have 2 curves that I need to cut. One with a radius of 1.5 inches, that much. One with a radius of 2.5 inches. So I want to basically put an arc across the top of this 5-inch piece of wood, and I want to be able to make it repeatable because I want it to match the other 2 that I also have to make later. So the idea, and I got this from a YouTube video that I'll put in the annotations, is to literally make a jig that rides in the trough of this guy, and then I'll put a hole, a couple of pegs, one at 1.5 inches and one at 2.5 inches, that will let me rotate my piece of wood on the bandsaw blade at exactly the right radius. Now, like I said, Adam's gonna be here in just a minute, so I'm sure he has a better way to do this, or he's probably already made 15 jigs just like this, but I'm gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna go back to the table saw to do the actual cuts. Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is square up the edge just a little bit. I think I'm pretty good with my sled here. Height looks good. This doesn't have to be pretty, it just has to be square. And this, I'm gonna cut this piece of wood and use it for the, to go into the rail on the bandsaw. After talking to Adam, easier way, he said, give it a try doing the cuts by hand, freehand, keep it within 1/16 of an inch, and then put it on the grinder to sand it down when it's all assembled. So I'm gonna give that a try, we'll see how it goes. And if that doesn't work, I'll go back to making the jig. Okay, so I have a bunch of lines, but this one looks like a pretty good arc, so we'll go give it a try. Okay, so one of the things I saw on the internet when I was learning how to do circles, or reading about how to do circles, is that you use the back of the blade as the start of your pivot. So you bring it in and just kind of rock it around. So we'll try that, see how it goes. That's why I think I need to use a jig. It's all humpy and square on different sides. So
So let's see.
Okay.
Where's your pencil?
So my line is the one that, yeah, you can see just barely.
You do that, you just feed it, this thing, you can feed a 2x4 into it. So you can be very gentle and just make sure you're always feeding on that side.
Okay, good call. Okay, thanks, Adam. Wow, it really just eats it away. This beats the hell out of using a rasp. That's great, perfectly smooth. Okay, so my tack is gonna be to do the rough cut with all the glued together pieces and then do this cut separately. Okay, so after consulting an expert, the big giant 4-inch block is probably a mistake. Well, it's 3/4, it's 3 inches block. It's a 3-inch thick block is a mistake because I can't really cut this really easily with the bandsaw. So I'm gonna scrap this. Luckily I have a lot of extra wood that we painted. And I'm gonna do this in 2 different chunks. I'm probably gonna go ahead and use this for the bottom. So if you look at my render here, my plans, I need some pieces that are just about a 1/2 inch thick, I think, for the bottom. And then I need pieces that are 4.5 inch thick at the top of the arc. And one piece that's 5.5 inches thick at the top of the arc. So what I'm gonna do is cut this board the long way, horizontally into the right length segments. Then we're gonna cut off the arc and we'll take the ones that are good and I'd probably make a couple extra just in case I mess anything up. So here we go, let's get started. Okay, so now I need to make some half circles on here. Go over to the table saw, bandsaw rather. Okay, that's definitely workable. So I think I'm gonna go with the plan. Put all these together, cut all the arcs, the basic arcs, glue them all together, and then sand it down so it's all uniform, and then finish the gluing and cutting. And I'm going to clamp this down and then I'm going to screw it to hold it in place while I sand out the top and the bottom, the top arc, so that it's all even and looks really cool across the whole run of the thing. And then it's going to end up being 5 pieces thick. I have a couple extras because I did more than I needed. But the extras I'm going to have to screw on because I only have screws that are long enough for 4. Cinch it down. Okay, that's good. Okay, so now I just have to make sure I don't screw on top of the screw. Luckily, there's a mark right there where I had help. Well, I impact screwed the screw. It looks like a lot of work with a pair of pliers. Remember when I said I didn't want to screw on the screw? What I did was screwed directly in the center of the screw. I don't think you can see it from here, but it is literally, this screw goes into the X on top of the screw underneath it. So I'm gonna see if I can twist it out with a pair of pliers, and it looks like it's gonna come right out. The wood's relatively soft, and it didn't get into the metal too far, so that's good. And then we'll just try this whole thing again. Unscrewing stuff with a pair of pliers is penance for dumb mistakes. There we go. Never forget. Okay, so now I don't have to wait for the glue to dry in order to do this, and I can do it in multiple stages. So I'll have the same curve on the top of all this because I'm using the disc grinder, and then I can disassemble it and glue the stuff that needs to be glued and not glue the other stuff, and let's just go do it. And that is smooth as a baby's ass. I knew there was a good way to do this. I'm gonna take it apart now, and then we're gonna cut out the center holes, cut out the bottom piece for the ledge, and then we're gonna glue the whole thing together. Okay, so here, we have 2 different pieces. This one's the front. Yeah, that one's the front, isn't it? Is it? No, that one can be the front too. Okay, it's fine. But they have the same curve. Feel pretty good about how that turned out. Now what I need to do is cut out the arch that goes inside and then cut the holes across, not in the back piece though. The back piece I need to leave all together because it's gonna get everything glued to it. So that goes over here. The rest of these guys go back together. So I'm gonna mark here, there's an inch. I'm gonna do this, line that up, line all these up on that one. Oops, I'm gonna do it this way. So now what we're gonna do is cut a 1 inch wide lip around the edge here that's gonna go up. I'm gonna do it from the back actually so I can see. So I'm gonna cut an inch, mark an inch, and then I'm gonna cut an arc an inch. We're gonna do all that on the bandsaw hopefully. So let's do some measuring and then do some cutting. Okay, I've marked my cut. I'm gonna do this on the bandsaw hopefully. I should have enough room on the gate. Adam showed me how to lift it up. I'm gonna try to stay inside and leave enough room to do some sanding if I mess anything up so that I'm not completely boned and have to start over. Because this is the last of the big cuts I have to make. The other stuff should be really easy and straightforward. Here we go. So it worked. That was the biggest bandsaw cut I've ever done. It's terrifying. It's a little lopsided and kind of sad. But the good news is, I'm in Adam's shop, so he has this thing. It's a spindle sander. And what it does is it turns, and then it also goes up and down, so you end up with a nice even finish on the insides of tough curves. Okay, I think that's about as good as I'm gonna get. It still looks a little lopsided, but it's the kind of thing you'll never notice in the real world once you're actually using this. Which means it's time probably to unscrew, cut my shelf, and yeah, and then I'm ready to glue it all together and call it a day. That looks like a pretty good bottom shelf. You can always take more off, but you can't put more on. Let's go see how I did. So I'm gonna mock it up and decide where I want to cut to leave lots of room for my amp. So my thought is it's just gonna kind of rest in like this. So I'm thinking if I cut, let's just say right here, that leaves me plenty of room. So I think that's it for cutting. The rest is just clamps and gluing. And I think what I'm gonna do is take this apart, put some glue on, screw it back down to hold it instead of clamping it, and then probably only clamp the bottom and the back on. So let's just get started with that. Oh yeah, glop. Here, making sure not to get it on the outside edges. Same thing here. Just set it up like yay. Oh wait, I didn't need glue on that last one, shit. Again, this is almost certainly not the right way to do this, but it's fast and it's gonna work. perfectly smooth back. I'm gonna smack this on here with some glue, clamp it, and then we're done. Then all I gotta do is clean it up, finish it, do a little painting, make it look nice. I'm gonna start up top and then scooch down in hopes of getting it lined up really nicely. So there's enough room to wiggle. Okay, so it's done. It's glued up, it's clamped, everything's in pretty good position. I could have done a better job with the gluing, but the upshot on this whole thing is I'm gonna have to repaint at least the front face and the back, so it'll give me an opportunity to kind of hide my crimes there. I'm really stoked with how this turned out. I think it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna hang my headphones well. The amp's gonna fit right in here perfectly if I measured right. The amp fits right in there perfectly because I measured right. I learned a ton. That disc grinder that Adam has, I totally understand why he was so excited when he got it, because that made this go from a really long, tedious job using a bunch of jigs that I'd have to make and a bunch of crazy stuff to like kind of eyeballing it on the bandsaw and then fixing my crimes on the disc grinder and the kind of obscene looking up and down. I can't remember what that one was called, but it's the one that goes up and down with the spindle. So I'm gonna go do some finishing work and I'll bring it back into the office and show you guys what it turned out like. Okay, so the build's done. After we finished the video, I did a couple more finishing up things. The first thing you'll notice is I mounted a hook on the back, as well as some vinyl feet that I got at Ace Hardware. Using like a normal roofing nail, I can just run that up there, it'll hook in place, and it won't do too much damage to my wall going up. I also, you may note, came back with the disc sander and basically took all the paint off the top. I smoothed out the curve a little bit, and then I came back with some 120 grit sandpaper to put more of a smooth finish on the top, just so that there were no rough edges at all. Did a little bit of work on the sharper edges so that they're still distinct. You know, I didn't chamfer them, but they're, you know, it ended up much smoother and a little bit better looking. I really absolutely love the way this guy looks. It was probably all told about 4 or 5 hours of actual work. A lot of stopping and starting. Now, what did we learn? First off, don't finish first. That might work in the art world. I am not good enough at this point to do that. My mistakes are too varied and exciting to cover up with, hide my crimes later. So next time I'm gonna finish after I build the whole rest of the thing. It might take a little more time and it may not look quite as good, but you know, I think we'll try it that way and see if it works. If it doesn't, then we'll come back and go to the drawing board again. Second thing is I should definitely model everything, all aspects of it. One of the things I like doing for this kind of project is building it in CAD first, and then that lets me kind of walk through both what I want it to look like and then figure out what the best assembly and construction plans are. For something that's simple like this, it's not that big a deal, except I missed an opportunity. I could have just had an extra layer of plywood back here, drilled a small hole in the back layer, a slightly bigger hole in the inside layer, and had not had to do any kind of fittings. Could have had a whole wood design. You live and learn, you move on and go on to the next thing. The third thing is that disc sander is the best thing I've ever used. You know, instead of taking the time to make crazy trammels and do perfectly precise cuts up front, what the disc sander lets you do is actually just do rough cuts and then fix them in post, basically. So instead of making perfectly round cuts with the bandsaw or with the table saw or skill saw, or jigsaw probably more likely, all I did, do rough cuts with the bandsaw, leave some buffer, glue this all together, screw this all together, and then sand it down until it's the right smoothness. And I ended up with exactly what I was looking for in a fraction of the time it would have taken me to build the jigs and stuff to do the perfectly round cuts on the bandsaw. So that's it. I'm really stoked at how this turned out. I can't wait to hang it on my wall at home. And I hope you guys like this video. If you do, please let us know. We're gonna do some more. Next up, I think I'm gonna build a desk, which is a much bigger project. It involves welding and carpentry stuff and all that. The basic plans for that are up on Tested. We have a couple of written blog posts, so you can check them out. And we'll be back next week with more building it ourselves. See you guys soon. Bye.